Settled? Shall I start now? Cool. Welcome everyone and good afternoon. I think everyone had a good lunch. Today, I think some people I connected with yesterday and some people might not maybe know me from LinkedIn or somewhere else. But today I wanted to share some of the insights of how I navigated my journey during college as well as like afterwards, and was able to extract the maximum opportunities this college and this branch could give me. And eventually, during this process, I realized that when you dig deep enough, you would start finding math behind everything. And that's why I named this talk as Math is a Truth Compass. So, 8 years back, about 8 years back, I was one of few folks sitting there very anxious, never thought that if it's going to work out or not. And over the years, I think like life has different ways to give you challenges, right? And me, who was personally a student who wasn't very great at math, life thought, okay, chalo isko maths and computing mein dal dete hain. So now once I got into maths and computing, I thought, maybe I'm not a good student at math. I don't know how it's going to work out eventually at the end. But once, like little did I know that if I start embracing all of the opportunities which this college has given me or which this branch will give me eventually, I should embrace it with curiosity and with open arms rather than like judging it before even taking that step forward. So this was me around 8 years ago. This is in 2017. This is just outside of H10. I got my first photo clicked in this college. Over the years, in my first year, this was me. In the second year, I was able to go to IIT Bombay to do a paid research internship in machine learning and game theory. One of the best times and one of the most challenging times as well. That day, I somewhat knew that, like after that ended, I realized that maybe academia is not built for me, and I should probably try to go and like have my chances at the industry. So in my third year, I went ahead and cracked Google Summer of Code. I was working with CERN in Europe, and definitely one of the best people I've worked with till now. Gave me a lot of exposure and helped me understand how you can actually contribute to open source and how you can actually try to get the best mentorship from the best people out there in the world. And by my fourth year, I was already launching my own software products, which people till date use. Like thousands of people are still using this software. And even me till date use this same software to create my own resume. By fifth year, I was able to get a really good off-campus placement, and that I think kind of kickstarted my journey into corporate startup world. And this was like this photo is from one of the offsites at my company. Then I think somewhere around 2023, I had this itch of bringing out these stories to different people, and that's when I started a podcast called as Breaking Prod, where I discuss primarily a lot about unconventional career paths, stories which do not come out from the tech world, especially helping students and like people in early career to navigate through different aspects of working in a tech job. And then finally last year I joined Postman as an AI engineer, where I built on a lot of AI tools, but primarily I think a lot of people might have used Copilot. Here, how many people, can you show me with a raise of hands, how many people used Copilot before? Oh great, it's a great crowd now. People are very active and enthusiastic. So inside Postman, you can write a lot. So how many of you know Postman by any chance? Okay, that's good, that's great. So if you have seen Postman, you can also write test scripts inside it, and you can like change response body, request body, and all of those things are nothing but just code. And wherever there is code, there should be autocomplete. And that's where I come in at Postman, and that's what my work profile is there. I've always been an admirer of Steve Jobs from like since I was in school. And in one of his best commencement speeches, he said these lines, and I quote, that you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And I think today, the Department of Mathematics gave me this opportunity to come in front of you folks and connect these dots together. And I'm going to just share 3 stories with you, which actually helped me realize the beauty in mathematics. And it helped me see how the concepts which we feel very theoretical when we are studying our coursework becomes so important. And you might really not realize that this is happening behind the scenes unless and until you start digging deep into and start questioning that why is this happening and why is this happening, and then you keep digging and then you find, okay, at the end of it, it's all just math. And I think this is one of my favorite comic graphics which I have kept and saved in my gallery. And it says, if you see from left to right, it says the fields are arranged by purity. So sociologists are on the very left. Then psychologists say sociology is just applied psychology, and then psychology is applied biology. Biology is just applied chemistry. And then physicists think that they are on the top, but I think the mathematicians are way over there, like with the purest subject in their hand, says that, okay, I can't even see you from way over there. So that is one of my favorite graphics which I wanted to share. It's from a very good comic series called XKCD. You should check it out if you want. They have a very interesting and very witty graphics on there. So once this is my first story which I would want to share, which is around how mathematics would help you build powerful software which is very performant. And how many people of you here do web development? Do you have any idea on web development? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, anyone? अरे अच्छे से हाथ उठाओ भाई, दिखेगा नहीं. Thank you. So I think you would know what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript would be, and when you start writing that code, you are writing it and making it work inside a browser. But once you start getting performance bottlenecks, and that's when you realize, okay, I need to get much deeper into how these things are working, and I want to optimize it at that level. And that's where mathematics really comes in. So, and whatever you're seeing on the screen, even whatever this presentation is, it's all just like millions of calculations happening in the background to make any of these transitions happen. Like whatever you saw, this faded into another one. And that could range from like literally drawing a rectangle on the screen to like your favorite games like Counter-Strike, Valorant, or even complex softwares like Figma. How many of you know here like what Figma is? Okay, great. That's awesome. So at one of these companies, and I think I should give you a quick overview of how these things, Figma works for people who don't know here. So this, for example, here I have at my hand is Figma, and like these are one of the basics of Figma. What will happen is I can draw a rectangle, I can scale this rectangle, I can maybe go ahead and change some colors of this rectangle, and then I can rotate this rectangle accordingly. And whatever you're seeing on the screen, whichever is happening, it's all just millions of mathematical calculations, just plotting points on a graph. And even if you see this corner radius, I think people might have seen. So now if I go ahead and increase it to maybe like 100 or something, you see there's a rounded corner now. And then you can keep increasing this. And all of this is nothing but just mathematical calculations which are happening. And at one such company, before like the one which I got just after graduating from college, I was building something like this. So it's like a Figma editor, but this is used by all the top e-commerce firms in India at this point to create all of these ads. So recently, I think Amazon had a sale, and most of the graphics which we would have seen there would have been passed through this kind of software, where you have created one design and then it can adapt to like n number of designs from there. And we were hitting a lot of bottlenecks there. We were hitting a lot of performance issues with it. That, for example, I moved one thing from another and it is like lagging to come from A place to B place because a lot of people are using it. And in Figma, you might have seen like multiple people can work together, and all of those things are made possible by technologies like HTML Canvas. So people, like in my college, I never knew what HTML Canvas was, and I did not even realize how big of a tool this is. Once you start getting past the div and the span and the paragraph tags or whatever you have, then you see and you find HTML Canvas, and Canvas is nothing but whatever I saw, right? So this is built entirely on Canvas, where I can zoom in, pinch, zoom, pinch out. And I was able to make the same thing here, but for like advertisement, like all these e-commerce companies which were running all these advertisements. I just want to go a little deeper into how this actually is working. So if you see this code, how many people can understand this much of the code which is written? Are you able to see it clearly, or should I zoom in a little more? I hope I can. Okay. I think on that screen also it would have been seen. So it's basically written body, and then it is written canvas. And there's a canvas tag, and then there's another script. So nothing fancy going on here, but what it will do is basically create this kind of a canvas on screen. And once you try to get this canvas inside JavaScript, you can create a rectangle writing fill rect on 0, 0, which is x, y pe 100 by 100 ka create a rectangle. That is the basic fundamental, and it will work something like this. So on the 0, 0 plane, I think it is very much less visible because of the lights and all, but it has created a rectangle which is red in color. Now, what about if I have to round the corners, right? Like I did earlier in my example, I was able to round these corners off. And once I started hitting this roadblock because I had to create a lot of rounded corner rectangles. And that's when I realized, okay, this is something which is not given out of the box by HTML or any of the libraries by default. And I have to make it on my own. And I started reading upon this, and then I realized the beauty of something called as Bezier curves. How many people have heard this term before? Any video editors, any photographers here who might have seen this Bezier curve kind of thing? It's nothing but basically a mathematically defined curve which has few anchor points and few control points which you can use to turn or maybe like create or trace a curve. I'll show you with an example. I'm not going to make it very theoretical. So for example, if you have, I think this icon most of the people would have seen, right, on their phones. So on this icon, if you see, there are 4 points which are defining this curve actually, and these are like the starting point, which is the P0, and then there's an end point which is P3, and then in between there can be a number of points, P1, P2, P3, P4, whatever. And those points will define how your curve will look like. So for example, if I take a 2-point curve, which is technically not a curve, but it's a linear polynomial, which is happening, which is there, and these kind of, so I have only 2 points there, and it is moving from like one point to another. And this is, you might have commonly seen in, like, for example, in your games where you are having, like when you shoot a gun, so it goes in a straight line, the bullet goes into a straight line, and this is the equation which is guiding it. If I go one step further, and if I take a 3-point curve, which says that it's now a 2-degree polynomial, and now what is happening is the points are tracing the line, which is the green line, which is there, it is tracing that particular red line, and these things you might seen in like Google's logo, or maybe the speech bubbles which you see on your text phone. And it is also used in like robot navigation around simple obstacles and all. Then the most important one, and the ones which I personally was using for creating those rounded rectangles, was these 4-point curves, which is the cubic Bezier curve, which we use. And this is used for all of the icon rounding which you see on iPhones or any other place where you are finding like there's a curve. Yes, sir. Do you have any?
Just wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Cool. And then there are other higher order curves which are used in. So this was the general equation. I think this was, sir, which you were talking about. Is this the equation, the general one which you're talking about? So this is used in other like higher level like simulations if you want to create like aerodynamic simulations or whatever. All of these curves which you're seeing, these are all like, so when I had to build this, I had to actually code this out. So I had to create basically a straight line, and then at the end of that straight line, before that the curve starts, I had to write this equation to create that curve, and then there's another straight line. And so all 4 straight lines plus 4 curves were used to create this kind of a rounded rectangle thing which you were seeing earlier. And this is what the beauty of mathematics, and that's where I started getting deeper into understanding, okay, how this is working. And then I got into understanding how all the other for example, very simple example. I think this is any person who was studying in class 12 would have understand. For example, you have to rotate this rectangle, right? It's nothing, and I never thought I would use trigonometry in real life, but this was literally which I had to code it out, which I've written it here, that you have to find the new values of those 2 points, and this is happening for n number of points, whatever points you're seeing inside that rectangle, and whatever even the shade which is happening, all of that. Everything needs to be rotated by a theta degree angle, and that's what the rotation matrix is here. So this was one of the entry points where I thought like, okay, now this is getting more interesting. And it did not stop there. So this was mostly around how I used more theoretical concepts. And then there is definitely one of my favorite, which is statistics, I think. Shobik sir was the one who made me like fall in love with that in his class in 5th semester. And a lot of those concepts, I thought, okay, this is interesting and this is something which I can use. But I never thought I would be using those like decisions as an engineer to make better products. For example, so I was building this. I think this is something which people might have seen. This is how autocomplete would work. So if you write pm.test and then it will like start completing the rest of it. And this is something which I was building at Postman. And when you have to build a feature which is used by millions of developers and millions of people, and you can't see what they're actually writing. You need to drop a lot of clues in there, and those clues would serve as your data points, which are going to help you like take the decision to what to make next, or where is the error coming from, or what is the issue which is happening. And all of this is happening via just data. It's nothing like I can't see the user who's actually using that software at that point. And when you're working in a company, you need to realize that there are certain metrics. So for example, how many of you have taken part in any hackathon or built any own projects or something? Anyone? Okay, there are few people. I think more of you should like go ahead and take part in hackathons. I can this will give you a really good chance at placements, to be honest, because of the projects which you'll make and the exposure you'll get. So anyways, when you're working in a company, there will be certain metrics which you would have to target. And I had to do that to get a good rating at the end. And these were, for example, how many requests which were made for these autocomplete, like how many users who were using it were actually able to successfully use it. And then how many of them were able to come back another week to use it back again. Maybe like someone started using it and then they thought it is useless and then they didn't come back. So that is also a negative sign. So you have to make sure that the users come back as well. And then you have to make sure that the new users also are joining in. So these are the three metrics which come in. And once I launched this, I thought, okay, like this is a great feature. Everyone is using Copilot and it's going to work great. And how tough can it be? But when I shipped it out to like around, I think people, like around 1 million people were using this. It was rolled out to 1 million people, and at some point, like 26,000 or 25,000 people would be using that software at any instant. And we saw our server started crashing every now and then. And that's when I think people would go into panic mode and realize, okay, let me roll this back down. Let me close this feature because it's not working anymore, and it's crashing our server. It's costing us a lot in bills. But at this point, you have to realize, like I had to dig more deeper into what the data would tell me. And then I had this graph in front of me, which said, and this was using just basic SQL queries and some basic statistics. So if you see this graph, it says the blue line, which is going down, that is the duration in which a particular request is. For example, how much time is ChatGPT basically taking, or how much time my LLM is taking to get me the answer. And the green one is how many requests were successful per minute. So as soon as the duration went up, the successful requests started coming down in like there was a huge drop, and then it recovered again. So this was a pattern this is a very uniform pattern. This is a bit of a synthetic data here. It's not like, I can't give you the real data what was happening, but it was very similar to this, what is here. So now what was happening is, whenever a user would enter a huge, they were starting to use it, after some point, they would stop seeing the requests and stop seeing the suggestions, and then again, after some time, it will start coming back. That is because the servers were trying to recover and trying to like manage all the resources which they had during that time, and it was suffering, like a lot of people were suffering, and they were dropping off that this feature is useless. It works sometimes, it doesn't work the other times, and that was a bit of a problem. And that's when I went back to the fundamentals to understand like what makes up an AI LLM requests. And there are primarily, I think, 3 parts to it. One is what your input parameters are. What is your context? Like, for example, I think everyone would have used ChatGPT by now here, right? So now in ChatGPT, you write some prompt and that is your context. And then ChatGPT also knows what you have talked with it before. All of that serves as a context. And then there is the number of, and that context should have a specific length. It can't be like infinitely long. So that, and which model you're using. Maybe now, how many people heard about ChatGPT 5, which got released recently? Have you got the update yet? I got it this morning. That's why I'm asking if people got it earlier or not. I'm like trying to try that out. So now that is the model name, which is so these things make up the inputs. And then there are the outputs, like how many tokens should be coming out, like what is the length of the output should be there. And then there is at what time should I stop? How much creative should the LLM get to get these answers? And then there are the configuration of the servers, which is like how much big of a GPU I'm using, how much big of a CPU I'm using, and on which the model will be actually running. So once I got into that, I thought, okay, let's start with one by one and see what we can quickly do. What is the lowest amount of effort I can put to give the highest reward? And once I started mapping out the input parameters, I said, okay, give me the size of the input for successful requests. And that's when I saw that as soon as the size of the input started increasing, the success rate started dropping really hard at that point of time. And then that was a sum of a clue that, okay, the input is kind of, if someone is coming in with a huge amount of input, that is actually causing the servers to choke down. And then like once that request is completed, that person has got their answer, then it moves forward for other people as well. This is... Huh? No, it's not periodic in nature. It would be like very erratic. For example, some people like, for example, today in this crowd, if 5 people are like making some noise, others won't be able to also hear it as well. So it's not periodic. It would be at some points or the other, but that was causing the other users to not get the answers as well during that time. So that was a bit of a problem. So what it made me realize that every system is built with its limits, and those constraints can be reasonably defined with data. So once you have that data, in the one which I showed earlier, I realized that, okay, there is 90% of the users who are there are having less than 2000 tokens as input, and the rest of the ones which are like huge, like which have a huge amount of input, those are the ones who are choking down that system entirely. So what I did was I said, okay, like for a quick win, let me try to limit down the number of input tokens which I have, and definitely I'll drop a few requests, but the people who are already using it and who are loving the product will actually find it more useful because they're getting a predictable experience. And what happened was, like earlier, maybe the success rate was maybe around 92% or something, which shot up to 99%. And this is on the result of, like, for example, definitely 9% of the requests per drop. But if you see, because of that limit which is coming in, but as a result, it got us 40,000 more requests per day. And then there was like 13% week on week retention. So 13% of the users which came in today will be coming the second week as well. And then there was about 5% new users which came in, maybe by a word of mouth, or maybe someone in the team was using it and then they suggested it to other people and then they started using it. These numbers might look very small, but if you like give it on a 6-month projection, if you consistently keep performing this, these are actually great numbers because they're going to give you great amount of users, and more users definitely equals more money, and more money equals I think get a promotion on that. So this is how I think I was able to map the statistics and the data and just the curiosity of what I had around mathematics helped me make better decisions about what products I'm building, and also make them more performant by using like the core level concepts, like for example the Bayesian curves which you saw earlier. And acquiring this fundamental knowledge might feel very boring in the beginning. It's like really mundane, but over time, if you keep at it, it's going to give you compounding results in life. Because this fundamental knowledge is something which is missing in a lot of people, I think specifically in the AI age, because any answer is just like a few prompts away, right? And then once you have to critically think about something, and then you have to think about something original, it becomes very hard. And I think I read a tweet by Kunal Shah, and other people also resonated with it. Kunal Shah is the founder of Cred, by the way. So he also was tweeting that the amount of critical thinkers in today's world, in AI world, is going to be very few. And the ones who are able to do that are going to make all the difference in shaping the future of what the AI world is and how it's going to look like. And all of this is just because of this one question which I would ask whenever I see something new, which is why. And like, I would not believe in, like, maybe I can take the things at face value, whatever your colleague is saying, whatever your maybe counterparts are saying, but I think you should start questioning more around why this is happening, and like you should try to get more curious about what is actually the crux behind the things which they're telling you. So yeah, for example, if someone comes to you and says that, okay, WebD is going to be dead or front-end engineering is going to be dead, you should ask them why, instead of saying, okay, oh shit, now whatever I've done is waste. For 2 years now, because AI is coming and my front-end job is at risk. You should start asking them why, instead of taking that at face value. And I think this one question has led me to work at one of the best AI teams in India, which is working at Postman, and then build a good community around my podcast, and also like host that podcast. And if like all of this, a lot of these conversations which I'm doing right now, or maybe a lot of advice which people are asking me, a lot of it is covered in some of the episodes of the podcast, so you can check it out if you want. I can share you the link of the slides as well later. but this is the QR directly, which will take you to the page. And I think I promised you 3 stories today, but there has been just 2. And the third story it's not mine. That's why I did not like put it at the beginning. It's probably yours. For example, if someone is here in this crowd who's sitting, who's listening to this particular talk for like the past 30 minutes, and maybe comes in the future standing here where I am standing here, and then tries to connect the dots at like from there, because they took whatever was coming their way with curiosity, without judgment, and they tried to make the best use of the opportunity. They kept going on, and they were delusional that the world will help them out. So just keep going, be curious, and start building from there. And let's catch up after this if you have anything. Thank you.